paired with love or emotion, kindness, happiness. Yellow, like a warm yellow, is usually very cheerful, positive, warm. But if it's pale or neon or greeny, it could be fearful, sickly, dangerous, warning. Ah, it's very striking, very startling. Yeah, sick. Uh, Green is a good neutral color if it's not too deep. But what if it's like a muddy, swampy green? Would that change the meaning of the color? Like if your backdrop is like a muddy, swampy green, yes, sick. It's a little bit creepy, a little bit unknown, confused, maybe jealous. Have you ever heard of the idea green with envy? So yeah, when we're working on our color maps, it's important to think about the meanings of colors, how people usually interpret them, and keep that in mind. Can you use colors to explore the journey of your main character? Maybe the character starts out sad. He used a lot of darker colors and blues. What if, so for the cow, because I just had April's dummy up. What if April's dummy starts off very bluey greeny with kind of more somber colors, maybe like a bluey greeny and browny, because this is we're in the country, it's very rural, very quiet, very country. And then as the book goes on, the color palette gets more warm and starts popping with like cotton candy pink and like vibrant reds. And you start bringing in those colors more and more as the book goes on, and the people get happier and happier. Maybe the character. So one of the common ways to do this is to have have the colors evolve as your book is going on. And if you have a story where somebody's going from sad to happier, you can lighten up those colors, start turquoising, transitioning from like a darker blue to maybe like a turquoise, go into peach, yellow, peachy, pink, orange, these kind of pastel happy colors that generally have more positive connotations than like a dimmer blue. So colors can tell stories. All right. Also, the color of your characters has some impact. For example, before I figured out what colors I was going to make Sidekick Nick, I did a couple of different color tests on him because I didn't really know what I wanted him to look like. Super Tessa's colors are yellow and red, so I wanted something that would look good with that. And I knew his hair was going to be orange because he's an existing character, but I had no idea what else he was going to look like. Like when he was a supervillain, he wore like bomber jacket and crazy goggles and he had a red scarf. But he's not a supervillain anymore, so what is he going to wear? And I had to think about what colors would look good with Super Tess, how he would be able to complement her, but not melt into the background. Maybe you can tie the characters of your colors together, or I just said that backwards. Maybe you can tie the colors of your characters together so they complement and reflect one another. For example, he has her cape colors in his shirt and bag. If there's a bad guy, could you use the opposite of your character's colors? I did this a lot. Again, Super Test is very bright, vibrant colors. Sidekick Nick had very dark, super dim colors to reflect each other, but they both had that strong red element to show that they were connected. And he still has some of those colors now that he's a good guy. You can also have very exaggerated colors if there's a very strong moment. For example, on this page, I wanted it to have a very strong yellow emphasis. And I use this page a lot because I like it a lot, and it's probably my favorite page in the book, just because it's cool. But I was going to see what it looked like if I turned all of the colors yellow. So I toned down the red to make it orangey. I kind of took out the skin colors and I was like, okay, what would it look like if they were just yellow? I didn't end up using this, but it was very useful to see how the colors would pop. This is a bit more detailed than your normal color thumbnail, but this was for an assignment for illustration course that I was taking, and I like to use it because it's kind of shows where my mental state was at that time. Okay, and another thing to remember as we are doing this, you're going to need to leave space for words, especially if you are doing a color background and especially if that color is more saturated. If you look at this green, it's not too terribly dark, right? It's not too terribly dark. However, even this green is too saturated for the words because it'll dim up that contrast. So you need to make sure that the spaces behind your words are high contrast enough that you'll still be able to read your text. And sometimes that means putting little circles in places so that you can have that space clear and your words are readable. You can either leave the white space in the artwork itself, or you can add it on later with like photo editing, but you need to make sure that you have space for words. And that's what I did here. There is text in each of these spaces in the final book. Here's some more examples of word spaces. You can see how I toned down the colors so that you can more easily read. And the one on the left there with the blue is actually a poor expression of that because the words are kind of hard to read. I should have toned it down even more. And also you can see Super Tess's colors on this one on the left. This is actually the page right before Boom for reference. So we can see how her colors, yellow, and her color and her character body language is expressing an emotion. What is the emotion that is coming through on this page on the right? What would you say is joy? Yeah. She's cheerful. She's excited. In the book, yeah, very funny. That might be the one on the left. So in the story, this is the moment where everything seems to be going right. They have been able to help their neighbors rebuild. There's people coming, there's work getting done, everybody's happy. She's like, all right, now we can fix our house. Like, I feel good, the city's looking good. I finally feel like I have the okay to help myself here. And then, the storm comes and she starts freaking out. And then, eventually we get to this page on the left. But these are two very different color palettes, color schemes, thematically. The one on the right here is got very warm tones. However, I did foreshadow that the storm is coming. Would this be considered a true turquoise color? With the sky here. Is this a bright color? It is not. This is a color with a lot of gray in it. And what color are these clouds? We got gray clouds, which means there is a disconnect here in this artwork. We have very bright colors, very happy, everybody's happy, things are going well. And yet we have some darker background colors hinting that something is not quite right. And so in the very next page, when we get the boom, it's kind of foreshadowed because the colors were kind of hinting at it. So that's some of the things that you can pull off just with color. And so when we're talking about color thumbnails, by the way, this was the color map that I used for this page. You can kind of see it's a little silly looking, but this was the map for this page. And this is the level I'm looking at for this particular assignment. It does not need to be too terribly detailed. It doesn't need to be too pretty. Like if we look at this, Super Tessa's legs are clearly just stick figure legs. She's got Henry Stickmin legs in the background. Uh, these things happen.